Hello, hello. I'm here with Donna Bowman, and we're here to talk about Robbie Coltrane. Now, I know, a number of us had a Thanksgiving holiday. So, in the US at least, it was this week. So, this was our big time to not be available on Thursday. So, we did not have our usual wrap up on Thursday on Zoom. But Donna and I were just chatting over, who we spent the holiday with. And I think was it England that did theirs like a week or two ago? Do you know?
I do not know that. I am
Somebody
not
was,
very national.
yeah, as far as the holidays, I'm international on that. I wish I had a good calendar that would sync with my Google Calendar because I have like the Spanish ones, but that's all I have. But I noticed somebody else said, "Oh yeah, we had ours like a week or two ago." So I know you guys are having yours now. We have June, we have Lynette. I'm sure we have other people out there. We have a few people watching. Good morning,
I see
Tommy. Hello,
Tommy and yep.
Christine.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. Very sunny, very nice. It's supposed to be the nicest day of the weekend here. So
Oh, wow. Have you guys had cold yet this week, Donna? Or
some, but this week's been pretty decent. It's supposed to be 55 today, which is good for Illinois. So
yeah, same with us. We were supposed to be in the mid 50s this week, which is exciting considering we were like below freezing the entire week before. And my husband works outdoors right now. They have a job site that's not closed in, so he hasn't been really appreciative of the cold weather. But it looks like a beautiful day out there today.
yeah, you got to take it while you can get it this time of year for those of us in the fall
Hmm.
part of the hemisphere. So
Yeah, I want to go visit like people in Australia or whoever it is that's having summer right now. So summer's a good season. I
it
like the warmth.
is.
Steven says foggy here. Yeah, but Steven, you also get a lot more snow and stuff than we do here in Kentucky. So Donna, how do you think our week with Robbie Coltrane went?
I think it went well. I enjoyed the Scotland. I had not done a lot. My husband has one branch, and I have a branch that I haven't figured out. I suppose they have a lot more Scottish than I know about, but I haven't figured out how to get to that. So I haven't done a lot with Scottish. So the Scotland's people I had only experienced with a little bit, but it was really helpful for even without credits, it was a good search site. So
Yeah, and the dates are based on something valid. That's what I was trying to explain to somebody the other day. It's not like, say on some of the other genealogy sites that we're on, where an index with a date might not even be correct because you don't know where they got the date from. But the dates on Scotland's people are actually taken from the vital records. So I was excited too to see that so many of those were available.
I did find on the Scotland people though, I noticed that it also is a register. So there was a one that was registered like in 1866, but the person died in late December of 1865. So without viewing the actual document, the search result was did say the wrong year, but it was you had to go into the credits to see the actual date.
Yeah, and we did have several of us that had credits available. The only thing I asked people was like, don't ask for every single record to be, viewable, but definitely if you have questions like that, or say the index doesn't tell you who the parents are and you're hoping to get, a father's name at least, they could definitely ask in Discord, and one of us would get that record for them. And somebody said, I'm not sure who that is down there. How we got here genealogy said love Scotland's people, and yeah, they are considering relatively affordable, compared to the sites that I use for some of my other locations. It definitely is affordable.
Yeah, I do like the option, especially if you were heavily Scottish, like if I was Robbie McMillan or Coltrane, I would want some sort of subscription. But when you look up individuals like that, I do have credits and I looked up, I probably only spent 30 credits because I only did
Yeah,
about 5 or 6 lookups, but that's very affordable when you only have to look up a few things.
yeah,
But I don't think they have a subscription though, do they? So you can only do it with
it's
credits, I believe.
yeah, it's by the credit.
Hmm.
So it's not like you can pay an annual cost, but yeah, once again, it's so affordable compared to, a lot of other sites. Really nice and easy to use. Now I know we were not thrilled to find out that on our All Scotland week, they went down for maintenance at near the end of our week, and so we had a full day where we couldn't access the records at all, and we just had to hope we could find something on one of the other sites. But uh, and then, it was a learning experience for us anyways, because, some of us that aren't familiar with Scotland and how their project does things, didn't necessarily know to use a certain type of citation. And, so we tried to make a full citation on it, and it wasn't necessarily what they wanted on it. So, I did do a request for people to go back in and just do the search terms that they used is enough to put as a source citation. And then obviously if you want to just link to the Scotland People's main site, because linking to anything else will not work.
Yeah, that's sad, but yeah, it's hard. You can't control that, so we just have to do the best we can. So
Yes, we can. And yeah, see, now my husband's family, he has Scottish and Irish on his, but I just have Irish on my line. So I just really haven't spent a lot of time looking at Scottish ancestors. A few times here and there for small branches, helping other people. But we've never had a challenge where we had somebody that was 100% Scottish. So this was really fun for those of us that aren't used to it to get out there and jump in and look at those records.
yeah, it did sound like we hit quite a few countries within the seven though, within the 7 degrees on the down lines and the cousins. I think people were in about 8 different countries, I think, by the time.
Well, they listed 6, but I think we're missing a few. We had Scotland, England, United States, Canada, Australia, and Northern Ireland. And so
Right.
that was within those degrees, but I'm pretty sure we had a couple of others. And I thought we had a Wales one in there hiding somewhere. But I know once we started branching out into the cousins, we were able to at least find a few things. I know Karen Lowe likes to really go out there sideways and hit those long branches. And so she had found some interesting locations too.
Yeah. Yeah, she was the first one I saw, I think, that ended up in the States. She got there really quickly. She found the right line for her. So
Yeah, she's really good at doing that sideway work. I need to have her work on my CC7. Hey, Karen, go
I need to
sideways
make
on
time
my
to work
tree.
on yeah, I need to find time to work on my CC7. Mine's fairly low compared to a lot of people. So
Mine is too. When it first came out, mine was pretty average. It was kind of around that average amount, like 1100 or something. Then where there were a lot of people. But, yes, those of us that are involved with a lot of projects and, the challenge full time, it's really super hard to do our CC7. I was actually excited last week because we're doing some beta testing on WikiTree, and so to do it, I had to add people. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, we're done with the challenge. I'm going to start adding my people. And so I did. And like my CC7 went up by like 43 or something. I was really excited.
yeah.
And if anybody's not sure on how to use their CC7 number, either to help find profiles to work on during the challenge or to expand your own CC7 number, just reach out to me after the live cast, because I do have a short video on it. And there's one of my other project members that has a helpful space page on it. So really not that hard to do. It's the making the time, right, on it.
Yes. Yes, you can see it's easy to find the holes. It's harder to find the time to fill the holes in your CC7. So,
Yep.
but yeah, way too many projects and not enough time. So, but it's a good thing. There was a lot of interesting finds this time. I think there's 15 on the space page.
Oh, awesome. Do you
So
want
that
to
was
share a
good.
couple of those with us?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought the one about there is obviously the two younger brothers of his grandmother on his maternal side moved to New South Wales, Australia. So that was one of the first lines that got out to one of the other countries. Um, and then, of course, we had to have a railroad train accident. Robbie's second granduncle, Robert Loudon, he came to the U.S. in 1879 and he settled near Pittsburgh, where he was a watchman for the railroad for over 20 years. But in the end, he was killed by a passenger train. So
Yeah, and it's not funny that the poor man died via train for anybody that's new that's watching this. It's just that we kind of have this running thing going about, it was getting to the point with the challenge where every single person we did their branches, we found a train accident, and we were starting to wonder about all these accidents. We didn't realize that there were so many of them that it got to the point where it was really uncommon to find somebody that didn't have a train accident. So yeah, this was another unfortunate uh, train incident.
especially in today, we don't use trains for passenger anymore. So a lot of, at least in the States, a lot of the trains are fairly not, there's no people around where the trains are. It's cars maybe, but there's not people entering trains as much. So yeah, not
Yeah,
something we
not
think about as much in today's standards.
yeah, not nearly as many passenger trains as there used to be. That used to be the way to go long distances.
Or you could hop a train. You could hop up, here you could hop a train from here, our town to the next town, get off, and then if you knew the schedule, you could hop it back when coming back home later. You didn't before the cars were as common. You could do that, but now you don't do that. So
So who else did we find?
the oh, we had Robbie's second great grandfather, John Ross. He was a hatter in Scotland, and he left his fortune to his family in his will. But the lawyer that was dealing with the estate stole the majority of the money, and then he himself left for the States. So that was a sad one for the family
Yeah.
because I don't think it was easy to amass money back then, especially back then, and to have anything left for your children and then have it gone. I'm glad he didn't know it, but it had been
Yeah.
hard for the children. So let's see. Oh, and then we had a bonnet dresser, which at first we all were thinking of a actual closed dresser, like a picture of a dresser in your bedroom, but it was a person who adorned a bonnet or decorated a bonnet or made a bonnet. So, and they actually had a business where they employed about 20 people, and that was Alexander Picken. So,
Yeah, really fascinating. I love it when people find those unique occupations, that aren't as common.
trying to look through the other ones here. And we had a cider maker. We had John Weir was the son of a cider maker. He worked hard to feed his family. Then he became a keeper, a police constable, a mole catcher, a garden servant, and then a laborer again. And then he was in the mining industry. So he had quite a few different, that's a lot of
Yeah, and I
professions for one gentleman.
and I found it fascinating that at 74, he was coal mining. I mean, for anybody that doesn't have that occupation in your family, it was not an easy job. And, the days were really long and hard, and they didn't work in great conditions. And it was just an awfully physical job for people to do. I can't imagine being 74 and, working at the coal mine. My hat's off to him.
Yeah, and it looks like he entered that profession later in life. So
Yeah.
they one would assume that he still needed to work. I mean, it's hard to work at 74 in general, but then to start in coal mining, it's a hard profession to be in very long.
Yeah, definitely somebody with some really strong work ethics.
Yeah. He probably worked hard to support his family when working hard to find that many different um, professions and still looking. And we had one seventh degree relative that was in the Lancashire Fusiliers, and I assume that was a military. And his disability when he left was recorded as constipation. That's quite the disability.
Yeah, it's crazy how so many little things, what seems little stuff to us nowadays, because we have so many ways to treat different health ailments. And, back in the day, I mean, they just didn't have the options that we necessarily know or the knowledge. And so
Right.
sometimes it didn't take much, even a flu bug that normally we would just treat and move on. They, an ear infection, or, it was so much more critical back then.
Right. Yeah. And we didn't stuff we take for granted now that is just a one day thing we can treat and be better. So then he had a first cousin twice removed that was a veteran of the Great War, which I believe is the First World War, correct? The Great War.
Yes.
He served with the Gordon Highlanders and for 3 years was guarded as a prisoner in a German camp. And he had been captured after he had a head wound while he was unconscious. And they thought he was dead for quite a bit of that time. But he made it back and his family moved his family to Canada.
Yeah, and that whole thing with him was tragic.
Oh, yeah.
He obviously had some severe health restrictions and whatnot afterwards. It took a really serious toll on him, and he had a plate in his head, didn't he?
Yes, I do see that now. And then he ended up tragically taking the life of his
Hmm.
wife. So yeah, he must have had, we think of concussions nowadays. That what he had must have been very serious to have a plate in his head. Um, so yeah, that's probably a concussion or brain injury, I would think. That's very severe. Yeah, lots of interesting finds.
Yeah, people did great. And, we kind of wondered about it only because if we're focusing on some of the areas like England or the United States or, even Canada, you've got newspapers that you can go and look at. And, we have people that sit and just do that sometimes for the challenge for United States ones is they go out to newspapers and they look it up and find these interesting little tidbits, because unfortunately with some people, if they're not political or wealthy, or something tragic, really tragic happens, then you don't necessarily find out about them in the news. And we like finding these little bits, good or bad, that kind of bring to light what that family went through. And even that last one, you have to think how hard that was on the children. I mean, to lose both of their parents at the same time. And from the sounds of it, they'd already been dealing with a lot of issues as far as with his health and whatnot, and lack of money. And so those things really help, but we weren't sure with Scotland, and it turns out we did wind up, with different ways. And Donna, I think you belong to a site, don't you, that had newspapers for them?
Yeah, I was amazed. The British Newspapers Archive has quite a few Scottish newspapers on there. So depending on the area, some areas are not heavily archived on there, but other areas, quite a bit was able to be found. So, but yeah, the newspapers definitely help bring life to the ancestors and the cousins and the because otherwise it's just a lot of dates and
Yeah.
places and people. So I really like the stories.
Yeah, I was talking to my mom a couple days ago, and we were talking about that. How sometimes these little stories are the only real way you get to see like what kind of things they were dealing with. And I was saying how one of my first great grandfathers that I researched, he got fined for letting his livestock wander over into the neighbor's yard and eat. And so the first time they fined him like 50 cents, and they were like, slap on the hand, put your fence up, fix it, do something. But then he wound up like 3 weeks later doing the same thing. So he never fixed the problem. And I'm thinking him and the neighbor probably just didn't get along real well to begin with, And so the next time they were like, no, we're not giving you the little fine this time because we told you to fix the fence. You didn't do it. But it was just funny reading all the stuff in the newspaper and thinking, how boring were their lives. This made the news at that time. They were like, oh, we got something to put in the paper this week. Let's put about the livestock wandering over.
Yeah, probably in between the wars and the different things that happened, catastrophes and big news, and those little things are what kept people buying the paper, and so
Yeah, and if you haven't been, to the Big Island in Hawaii, nowadays it's the chickens, which, at some point there was like, and of course they don't have all the land that we would have on the mainland, to have big herds of cows and stuff. And so chickens were a popular thing to breed, and you got the eggs from them, you could eat chicken. And so at some point there was a population explosion of them, and they did not have any luck restraining that and lowering that number. And now when you go into some of the shops, even the chickens just run wild there. So you'll go into a shop to buy candles, and there's a chicken hopping along the shelves, because they go in and out when the people do. And yeah, it just cracked me up. I never heard anybody say anything about the chickens, when I went over there. And I was like, okay, there's chickens in this store too. So let's not buy
it
like
must
open things of nuts or anything, because might have been some
Yeah, they
chicken
probably can't
wandering
keep
through it.
anything open. Yeah, they
Yeah.
probably can't keep anything open for food-wise or even anything that they could digest or ingest, so
Yeah, it all had to be like in bags and jars and stuff like that. But it was pretty funny. And even when we went to one of the pineapple factories, and they had a little like slushy stand and stuff like that after you took the tour, there were chickens running around in there on the floor too. They weren't up on the counters at least, but there were chickens running around. I was like, wow, that's a lot of chickens. Chickens eat bugs.
right. We had a lot of participants this week. That I was it was it's just kept people kept coming in and coming in. I was really happy that we had so many people participating in the challenge.
So was I, because I know some of the people were concerned, they wouldn't necessarily join us because they didn't know the Scotland research. So I was excited to see, we have at least 39 people. And I always say at least because we usually wind up with a few that aren't signed up that want to help anyways. And, it was really, really great to see like 40 people working on these branches. And, once again, like some of us took the holiday and didn't do anything, but it was nice to see that there were still people around the clock in Discord working on stuff.
Yeah, I know at this time of the year, the distractions come up left and right as you commit to something and you think but you're gonna have time and then you get distractions. So I kept popping in and help out here and there where I could. And but yeah, there was always somebody going and somebody had an issue, stories and um
Yeah,
so much collaboration too. People were really helping out each other.
that was a good segue to our stats here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And once again, we had 39 people that were registered that made some sort of a contribution. And, there's always some that don't. But our top, and I have to tell you, Guillaume just was a powerhouse this week, because that should actually say 100 bounty points. Out of 200 bounty points this week, Guillaume got 100 of them. So he got one half of all the available bounty points. And, it was mixed up. Some of his discoveries were chosen. He did quite a few brick walls. I think he saw 5 brick walls, which was just amazing. And, so
Wow.
he wound up with a lot of points. But look at all these other people, that did. Celia, Dunya did, John, Rosalie, Liz, Heather, Ian, and then of course there was just so many people that got bounty points. It was really exciting. And then total points was 1,540. But the number I like to look at is over here at contributions, because we only do this for 1 week, and people can't come in and spend 24 hours a day doing it. We just all volunteer however much time we have. But there were 4,862 contributions done in that 1 week. And that was over 1,569 unique profiles. So, to
Wow.
me, that just is amazing. It always amazes me.
Yeah, if you think of the sheer number of, there's millions of profiles, but to actually improve over 1,500 profiles in a week, it's amazing what can be done.
Yeah. It just goes to show the power of collaborative genealogy because when we get in there and we get our minds, set on getting something done, it always helps when you have people that you kind of bounce ideas off of, or, you do a parent change, you want a second set of eyes on it. I think we get a lot more done that way than if one person is just sitting down and trying to figure out a mystery and untangle something. And then we did have a few people in the top 10 that didn't have bounty, and they still wound up in the top 10. So Billy Crawford did, Alan Drummy did, and Valerie Penner did. So, way to go, you guys. I mean, it's hard to get in that, top 5 to 10 without having bounty points. So that means, you guys really had a lot of input into this week, a lot of participation.
And then, like, what ends up with me a lot of times, so Cecilia up there, all of hers were single relative points. Nearly all of them. She had 137 relatives added outside of the ancestors. The ancestors one can add it fast, but just adding within those 7 degrees adds up fast as well.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more profile work. She touched a lot of profiles doing that.
Well, yeah, and and for people too that aren't really sure, they don't feel confident that they can do the research. That's one of those other ways that they can do this is, there'll be those of us that go, okay, I'm researching this couple trying to figure out this problem. But, I did put the sources for their 10 kids on the profile. If somebody wants to go add them, feel free. So if you don't feel confident doing the research yourself, you can get into our live chat and Discord. And when somebody says that, go, hey, I'll add them, and take the sources and create those profiles because that's still really important and it's really helpful. I want to see the whole family on WikiTree, not just the main ancestor.
Right. And that's what I've been doing as well. I kind of will wait until the next day and then I'll start looking up the newspaper articles on starting with like the grandparents or the great grandparents, depending on the ages, and try to figure out where I want to, and if I find things I can just add on to what they've already done to make the ancestor stories more interesting.
Yeah, and I do love the fact that we go out to these 7 degrees now. And that will be something we'll be continuing for the 2023 challenge. But it just gives people so many more places to work on. And last year we only did the direct line. And if we had a lot of people signed up, you'd get in there and it was really hard at the start to find a profile to work on. But now, once those first, few generations are added, there's just hundreds of ways you can go with it. So it makes it so much nicer for participants to be able to get out there and find something to work on.
Yeah, I like it better. I like it this way. I'm not a big I like to compete, but I'm not like I don't like the huge compete. So I like to be able to contribute and see that I'm contributing, but I don't always have to be, you know,
Popping points.
battling. Right. I don't want to have to. The ancestors, like you say, are a little farther between. There's not as many, and it's harder once you get out. So it's some people are really good at that, and that's good. They can do. It's more of their jive. They can. So.
They can follow that path and everybody else will just go branch out.
Yep, I
Now,
like the connections, so that's one of my favorites.
did you have any really difficult ones this week that you got to look at or?
Um, the naming was just hard because there was so many, unless you could find that had a last name that didn't have any particular ones. I didn't have a chance to get in deep on anything. So if I ran into a challenge, I usually took a break and maybe hit another kid or another line because I just didn't have the time to delve into anything difficult this week. But there was some in the chats that I saw that were quite the tangled web of conflated profiles and
Yeah,
so
and if any of
wrong
you in the viewing
parents.
audience want to pipe in with names of difficult lines or those common names, feel free. I know we had a number of them where the names were just so common, or they used it in 3 different generations in that family. Usually the Scottish are a little better about it because they do have their naming system as far as what to name the first child, what to name the second child, but you still wind up overall with some names that are just so incredibly common. And I know we did have a couple of branches that got clipped, not, not even long after we got started. And I don't ever want anybody to think that I don't believe them, because I'll say, okay, I just need one other person to look at this. It's not because I don't believe you, it's because I find it better if you have two different people with two different perspectives take a look, because they might see something you don't. And, chances are, I mean, you're right, it needs to be disconnected, but it also kind of gets them familiar with it so that when you go to reattach the correct parents, you've got a second person you can go to and go, oh, hey, I think this is the mother-in-law. What do you think? And they've already kind of researched some of the line, helping you out, and it gives you somebody to collaborate with. So, that's kind of
Yeah.
the reason I usually ask somebody. And I do the same thing for myself, though. If I think somebody's the wrong parent, I'll have somebody else come in and take a look. I'll say, I'll leave good notes and I'll say, come in and look. What do you think?
Yeah, and there's so many good analytical minds in our groups here that it it amazes me how much I don't always have that. I don't always have the time to get my brain wrapped around it, but once you can get your brain wrapped around it, it really helps to have someone to bounce it off of.
Yeah, and I love to see that go back, where they go back and forth in Discord once again in the live chat, and you'll get two of them that are trying to figure out this difficult, tangled roots and somewhere, and to watch them go back and forth and, bounce ideas off each other and say, what do you think about this? Or, I think it might, that's supposed to be that person. It's just really fun to watch and see how their mind works its way through the problem.
I know the ones that have done it like even just week, they don't realize how many of us are watching and observing and learning from what has been done. Even if you're not involved in it, it really helps to watch the process like that, I feel.
Yeah, it does. And, we all have different ways of looking at things, and we all have different skill sets and resources, even. So, where I might be stuck on something, you might have an additional resource that would help straighten it out. But I think, yeah, just having the different point of views, where I might tackle a problem this way and you tackle it a different way. If we get together between the two of us, we might really knock something out of the park. But yeah, the rest of
Right.
us get to learn by it.
Yes, I learn something every week, so for sure.
I do. And, I've been doing this challenge for almost 2 full years now. It's hard to believe it, but it's been almost 2 full years. And, I learn stuff all the time from the people that are involved and the projects that we interact with. It's really great. And Anne Watt was saying, if you do Scottish stuff, the best thing is to go ahead and go to Edinburgh. You can visit the archives, and for £15 a day, you can look up dozens of records. Which, for people that can do that, that's really awesome to know. That they just do the like a 1 day pass. I'm assuming.
That is nice. If you had Scottish ancestors, that would be really fun. I mean, I love digging into archives and real records. It doesn't happen that much anymore, but I
Well, and
really
the
like
other thing
that
you
part.
can do, there's just so many people, so many active genealogists on WikiTree, is reach out to people and say, hey, I need somebody to go to the archives in Edinburgh and offer to trade them something. Say, I'm in this location. So if you go to Edinburgh for me, I'll go to this place for you if you need it, and see if you can work out a trade that way so that you're both kind of getting something out of it.
Right. Or sometimes if they're already going there for something, they might be willing to look up a few things. It's just hard to coordinate all that. There's so much out there that's potentially useful in those ways. You can just make the connections with people.
Yeah, and I know that's one of the things we usually do as far as with the family history library is we have, you and somebody else that can look up records there. But when we get into these trees like this where it's all Scottish, it didn't really help us. So, but usually that is a huge help. Hopefully a trip in the next year. Well, you'll have to let us know if you go how much you find, how successful you are. And
Yeah,
Anne
Anne
says
says
she's
she's traded lookups. Yeah, that's really cool.
so Thomas, are you still down in the chat? I know he's probably getting excited about the next challenge coming up because that will be his week to captain again, where we have difficult lines.
It does. It
So
looks like very challenging and unique locations again. Not one location for sure, but multiple.
yeah, and we've kind of done little bits of this and that, as we've gone along. We've done quite a bit with the Ashkenazi Jewish people. And, we've had small places where we've dipped into Ukraine and whatnot. Russia, not so much. And Lithuania, I don't think we've done any research there. And so we're going to be really relying on our people that know, like the Hebrew and the Yiddish languages, to come in again. And we're really hoping they're working on trying to get the naming guidelines to match up with the fields a little bit better so that when we do start, we'll have some standards for that. And we will go over that in the kickoff next week. But hopefully, I think it'll be exciting. I think it'll be a fun week. It's just very, very challenging. And another one of those, Donna, where we get to learn from the people that know what they're doing. Because I don't know about you, but I don't have a whole lot of experience, just what I've done within the challenge.
I will probably be lurking and offering to do lookups, newspaper and family search. That will probably be my biggest contribution, maybe. Or if I can get down on some sidelines and do some connections, that'll probably be where I'll try to
Yeah.
add. So just
Yeah. And
a pure fact that I looked, we added almost 950 people to his CC7, basically between ancestors, nuclear, and within the CC7, there was 947 ancestors added just on the score sheet. So that doesn't count people who added them that aren't on the score sheet.
Yeah, I usually have the connections brought up, but I didn't this time. The other incredible thing is we always have a certain amount of lines that we connect to. So, that's our goal anyways. We want to connect to people that are already attached to the global tree, and that helps shorten other people's connections and to show us how we're connected to them. But, when we do that, we usually wind up with this nice laundry list of suggestions, and people really stayed on top of them. So, by the time I got in there and was trying to help with it, because I'll usually spend some amount of the week going in and trying to work on those suggestions once they build up. Most of them were knocked out. They were just already done. So that was really, really impressive.
I was trying to look, see if my distance improved. I know it had not earlier in the week, but there we go.
I don't think I checked mine when it ended either, just because it
Oh, I
was a
did.
holiday.
No, I did. I went from 33 to 24. I did
Oh,
finally increase or decrease my connection by 9. So that's cool.
I went from 39 to 23.
Wow.
That's
That's
a
a double
huge
digit
jump. I think
change.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest jump I've ever seen, and it looks like a lot of people at that same time did. So that was one of those really amazing connections that was initially done. Um,
I see one person on here, they were originally at a 50. They were 50 steps from Robbie, and now they're 18. It was a gain of
wow,
32 degrees of connection gain. Wow.
that's a lot. I'm excited if it goes like 2 or 3 steps closer. I'm like, woohoo, because that's a better connection made. And once again, that
There's
is
actually
part
a
of our
lot of
goal,
people,
though.
yeah. Yeah, a lot of people were double digit changes this time. 15,
Mm-hmm.
14, 16, 12. Yeah, there was quite a few of double digit decreases for the connection distances.
I know that's very exciting. Oh, Rosalind Todd, yeah, she went 50 to 18,
Yeah,
which is 32 degrees closer. I mean, that's
that was
just
the same one I was
incredible.
looking at. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it just really is. Usually we get some amount of jump, but not necessarily that big a one. But we must have made some, connected to some really good, well attached family lines. So
Yeah.
that was fun. And
And
I
in
think,
Scotland, I mean, a lot of those maybe have been with some of the Scotland connections. We must have made some, not just going 12 generations out and then connecting, but actually making something closer, I'm thinking.
yeah, and most likely it's those connections that did go out sideways. and especially the ones that were able to go to other locations because otherwise people like me wouldn't connect at all. If I had to rely on just Scotland, since I don't have those direct ancestors in my branches, then,
Mhm.
I need those other sideways um, or closer connections.
Right. I'm looking all over because I have extra screens. So then when I look for something besides the camera, I look like I'm looking away from everybody.
No, that's okay. We can tell. I do the same thing. I want to just read it, everything, and look at it all and all the changes. They were just really incredible. So I think we pretty much covered, though, everything, right? Do the
I think
interesting
so.
finds. I haven't done the fan chart yet, but if you guys, watch the G2G, and I will be getting the highlights post out today, and I'll put the fan chart, the ending fan chart on there so you guys can really see. Hopefully we'll have a few people that'll show up and it isn't just 100% Scotland, but it could be. So I don't know. I don't know until I get the fan chart pulled for it and I get the highlights done, and we'll see what happens with that. It'd be kind of fun if we could figure out a way to look at those charts, but you know what I mean? But just see which line those out to 7 degree people came on. Like they could float out on a fan chart or something so we could see the other
Yeah.
locations.
It's hard to get everything that would be neat to see in a way that you can find it. I mean, there's so much on there now that I don't use that is so fun to see when I see people using it. And I
Hmm.
thought, "Wow, I never would have thought of that, but that is really fun way to look at the connections or the um, ancestors. But finding
Yeah,
it
and
and getting it where we can all find it and use it is tough.
I know, like I use the 6 degree app a lot. They have the dynamic tree view, and that's really been worked on and improved since they worked on the extension. They worked so many features into that, and there's just all these fun tools that you can use. Of course, Greg's fan chart that we all love. I use that all the time throughout the year for the challenge and not
Right.
for the challenge. And then, have you tried the fan doku yet?
No, I have not.
It's
Have not
harder
had
than you would
time.
think. If you haven't worked on your own tree lately, it's harder than you think. And basically it's like a puzzle. So all the names are floating outside the fan chart and you have to put them in the slot they belong in.
Oh, I do wanna try that sounds really
Yeah.
fun actually,
And I'm
but
like,
I
oh,
have
this will
not
be
tried that.
easy. My main branches haven't changed in forever. It's just the outer branches that have. And you get to doing that and you're like, oh no, where was this one supposed to be? I think it's over here. Sorry, grandma.
Right, right. And then names repeat too, so then you're still trying to oh, and I am now 14th cousins 3 times removed from Robbie. So I'm actually a cousin now, so
Oh, awesome.
yeah, through
Well, I think,
England, okay.
yeah, I think we will go ahead and wrap this up for today. I want to thank everybody that participated really once again. It always just amazes us how much you guys can get done. It's just really incredible to always look at these numbers and see the huge amount of work that you guys can get done in a week. I mean, a genealogist could work all year and not get this done. And, you guys just knock it out of the park every challenge.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and even as captain, it's all the people that did all the work and just it's amazing watching what everybody can do. So I appreciate all the work they did as well.
And we will see you guys for the next challenge. Watch the G2G, and we will start Mark Cuban's week. And it should be an interesting one and a lot of fun.